Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day wherever you are in the world. Today we are going to be taking a look at versioning. That's right, we're going to be looking at Git versioning, we're going to be looking at something called Semver, and we're going to be looking at some best practices and things that I'm doing to try and manage versioning in some of the applications that I'm building for these YouTube videos. I think one major problem that has been slowly creeping up on me as I make more and more content is that there's plenty of these code bases that I've put on GitHub for this channel that I've wanted to come back to. I wanted to enhance, I wanted to add new features to it in order to create more videos for it, which I think is a really good way to demonstrate how to work and enhance existing applications instead of always creating something from net new every single time. Usually that's not always the case. Many cases you're working on an application and you want to add features and functionality to it over time. You're not always given the opportunity to start from scratch every single instance. And so this video is going to be focusing on talking about topics like that. So here I am on the Spring Boot blog application, which is, I'll put a link, of course, in the description down below to the original video, but it's one of my more popular videos on this channel, I would say, which I really want to thank everyone who's been supporting me and who's seen it and who's made comments on either ways to improve it or questions on issues that they've been encountering, things like that. So I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to do that for me. How do I create and present additional features on this project since that first release of that video? The way YouTube works is that it's very what we call immutable. So once you release a video, that's it. I can't go back and make a small tweak. Let's say I need to discuss or re-explain something that I've come across in my video. I can't go back and change it. It is at a state that is completely untouchable for many reasons. All of them are pretty much good, according to the way YouTube works at any rate. But software is not like that at all. Software evolves and changes over time. As we learn about different techniques and newer ways of doing something, we go back and either change something, remove something that we no longer need, update package dependencies on our application, etc., etc. So this is kind of a video focusing on how do I make that balance between the two. It's the first option, which I've been doing so far, is just merging in new work into the existing main branch of the application. So we've added, ever since that first video, we've also done an additional video on adding RSS support for creating an RSS feed for your blog, which is really cool, really interesting, but it's not part of that main initial first release that I did on YouTube. So now the downside of this is that when someone new comes to that video and comes to the repository, they suddenly see a state of the code that's totally different from what's being presented in the video. Newer code might be directly contradicting what's been done in the video, right? So they'll pull it down, they'll take a look, they're following along in the video, and they say, what the heck? Everything is totally different. Which way is the right way? The version that I'm explaining in the video or the updated version that I'm now seeing in GitHub? So it creates a lot of confusion. I'm hoping that I can come up with a solution to help mitigate a lot of that confusion. So I'm going to be going through something called Git Tagging, which I have been using for the releases for this application, but it's worth creating a video going through how something like this is tackled. One of the benefits of Git tagging is that it gives us a way of taking a snapshot of the current state of the code base, and then in the instructions down below in the README file, I can specifically describe how to check out the same state of the code that existed when I released that first video. So if you're new to the project, if you're brand new and you just do a git clone, you'll get the latest and greatest, whatever features we've worked on, anything that we've enhanced since then. But if you want to go back to what exactly is represented by the video, then there's a way of achieving that with Git tagging. You can check out the branch with the appropriate version tag, and then you'll be on your way. You'll be able to follow along exactly what we're doing in the video. So let's take a quick look at the website here and notice how we have right next to our current branch, which is the main one, we've got a ability to switch between different branches. There's a list of the 7 branches that I currently have on this repository, and along with 4 tags that I've created for releases for this application. So if you scroll down on the right-hand side, underneath the About section, you'll see a releases block. And this is how you can prepare and manage releases on GitHub, which we'll go through as in this video as we create a new release for some bug fixes that I've made since this RSS feed support release. But notice here, if we click on the releases header, notice here how we have 1, 2, 3, 4 releases, which all correspond with the four tags that we've set up on this Git repository. We started off on the initial release at version 1.0.0, and we've made subsequent version number increases since then, with the last one being version 1.2.0. So let's go back to the releases. Okay, so notice in this release, in the latest release that's available, if you come in here and grab the current source code, you will get a state of this entire code base at the point in time in which that Git tag was made. So maybe maybe I'll be updating this notes here, these development instruction notes, to not do a Git clone, but to grab either the latest release if you want to see what we've been doing since that initial video, or if you want to see the first version, then you can grab the specific release to that first version release. Okay, so let's go through how to do this. So first, let's take a look at what has changed since this version 1.2.0 tag. Okay, so I can't increase the font. I am using a tool called Tower. It is a GitHub client tool for working with source control. Works for pretty much anything that uses Git, any software that uses Git, like Bitbucket, things like that. This video is not sponsored in any way by Tower, but I would still recommend you take a look at it if you're in the market for getting a GUI tool for working with Git. This has saved my bacon on so many different projects through the years, just because of the way that it presents the code base and lets you either merge changes that you were trying to merge or get rid of changes that you don't need but have somehow been brought into the branch that you've been working on and you want to get rid of them, etc. There's a lot of things that it's helped me with. Now, unfortunately, I can't increase the font size on this. So you'll see that in the highlighted section here, this is the release of the 1.2.0. This is our last release where we worked on adding the RSS support to the application. Now, since then, I've made a few changes. So let's take a look. So this first change is that I've updated to Spring Boot 3.1.2. And so all this did was bump up the version number. I also commented out one of the Spring Boot starter dependencies that I didn't really get a chance to go into yet on a video, so I've been leaving that out for now. The next commit I have is just some variable cleanup in the security configuration, as well as some of the controllers. Okay, so notice how the things that have changed are highlighted in red and green. So red are lines that I've removed, and green, the green colored lines are lines that I've added in this particular commit. Okay, and then I've got another commit here for just increasing some styling. So we've added Bootstrap and added the Bootstrap CSS file to our Thymeleaf front-end files. Okay, and then we've got another commit here for fixing some template rendering, where we've added a few lines for ignoring some of the data that in the JSON objects that come back to the request to the front end. Okay, one change I made yesterday is updating the Spring Boot version to 3.1.5. And then today I made a few minor bug fixes thanks to some feedback that I saw on my YouTube video on issues that some people were coming across. So I've made some changes here, and you'll see added a few lines, removed a few other blocks of code here. And finally, I've set the proper version number on the project itself to the version that we want to release today, which is version 1.2.5. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about semantic versioning. Semver.org, it explains the principles of semantic versioning, which most web software follows, where the version number is broken down into three components. You've got a major version number, a minor version number, and a patch version number. So my latest tagged version is, let's go to the release here. My latest tagged version is 1.2.0. So 1 would be the major version number, the 2 would be the minor version number, and the 0 would be the patch version number. And so this quickly helps you identify how serious some of the changes are to the software that you're using. When we release the next version of this today, which will be 1.2.5, we'll be able to say, okay, the major version number hasn't increased at all. The minor version number hasn't been increased at all. Only the patch version number has been increased, which typically indicates that only very minor changes have been introduced since the last release. So a major version number change is when something significantly changes in your application. Let's say, for an example, we're going from Spring Boot 2 to Spring Boot 3, right? These are major changes that are happening behind the scenes that affect the entire application. And so typically with work like this, you would definitely increase the major version number. The minor version number tracks features that you want to add within that particular, major framework, for example. So in other words, we updated our Spring Boot. Let's see. So we upgraded from version Spring Boot 2.8 to Spring Boot 3. We made that jump. Now, if I was doing this correctly back when I did it, then this would actually be a major version number increase from 1 to 2. So then this release would be 2.1.0, something like that, because it's a major breaking change. Major functionality was different between version 2.78 of Spring Boot and version 3.0. So I made a little mistake there, but I hope you can forgive me. In a normal project, that's what would happen, is between major changes to the software, you would increase the major version number. Once we went to Spring Boot 3.0, we then added some work for adding RSS feed support, which is what we tackled in the last video in this series related to this application. And we correctly increased the minor version number from 1 to 2 because we're adding a feature that fits in overall within the same boundaries that we've established by that major change. Okay, so we can see right now that we're in a terminal window, so we can type in Git Branch, and we can see where we are right away in the application. We're currently on the main branch. I've got some other branches here. We can take a look at the existing tags in the repository by typing in Git Tag. So you can see here we've got the initial 1.0.0, and then 101, 110, and 1.2.0. So we've got all of our code ready to go for version 1.2.5. So what we're going to do is now tag the current state of this repository. We're going to type in Git Tag -a because we want to create what's called a annotated tag number. And we want to call this v1.2.5, just so I'm following the same convention here of v major minor patch, v major minor patch, v major minor patch. So I want to follow the same convention, v major minor patch. And you can create your own convention. This is of course, I'm not telling you this is the only way that you need to do this, but it's just one way that a lot of teams are currently using versioning and tagging. Okay, and then we can add a message to this. So in the message, I usually just say the same thing. So v1.2.5. And Git will take care of this for us. And in order to push this tag back to the origin or back to the main branch on GitHub, we just need to type in git push origin -- tags. So now this will push up all of the tags that we've created that are new to the repository so that anyone else who's using this project can see the same tags. So notice here that we've got a new tag generated 1.2.5. And if we go back to the repository here and refresh, we now see that we have 5 tags. We've got 1.2.5, which is really cool. So now let's go through creating a release. Woohoo! So let's go into our releases section. Okay, and then here at the top, there's a button for drafting a new release. So here we can either choose a tag or a branch or both. So we're going to be choosing the 1.2.5 tag. Okay, so we've selected the 1.2.5 tag, and let's create a title for this. So we're just going to call this, we'll call this one Small Bug Fixes and Minor Dependency Updates. We have the ability here to describe what we've encapsulated in this release. So this is where we can add a whole bunch of new text, release notes here to describe the things that we've changed. And we can go into huge detail, or we can keep things at a very high level. Something like, various bug fixes and enhancements. Okay, but I'm not going to do that this time. I am going to say something like updated styling with Bootstrap CSS. Let's see, I've made some template rendering bug fixes. And what's another release? Updated the Spring Boot dependency to 3.1.5. I believe that's what we've got. But this gives you a way of, you can attach images. If there's, functionality you want to highlight in this release, you can attach screenshots. You can attach so many different things to these release notes. We can attach additional binaries to here. So like, let's say we've got software that runs on other platforms that we have to build for, then we can actually create the binaries and put them here as part of this same release. So we don't need to worry about that for this project because everything is built locally when you download it and work on it yourself. So we're not going to bother attaching any binaries here. And we've got the option here. We can either set this as a pre-release or set it as the latest release. So when new visitors come to the repository, this will be the latest current change that people can download. So I want to set it as the latest release. And all that's left is to hit the publish release button. So now we've got a new version released on the repository, version 1.2.5. And you'll see in our releases section that it now highlights this new release and that it's the latest. Okay, this is pretty cool. So now if we go back to our terminal and we type in git tag, again, we'll see all the different releases. So what I want to do now is check out, how do I check out the specific tag that we want to work with? We can type in git checkout, and let's say we want to go back to the initial release of this repository, which was v1.0.0. So we want to check out tags v1.0.0, and we want to create a new branch. So we use -b, and then let's call this version 1.0.0 branch, or just version 1.0.0. So now we are in the version 1.0.0 branch, and if we look in so to help verify this, let's open it up in Visual Studio Code. You can open up anything, and the quickest way is if we go back to the POM XML file, you'll see that this is still referencing version 2.7.1 of Spring Boot. This is definitely the version that was used when I made that first video. So I hope that was an interesting look into how to release your own projects that you're working on, how to work with versioning, how to decide on when to increase the major or minor or patch versions of your software, and also how to release software on GitHub. I hope it was really beneficial, and I'll be seeing you in the next video on the series. If you liked what you saw, please give this video a like button, subscribe to the channel for notifications on future content, and I will see you in the next one. Peace, everyone.